Kumlan Ablak Gemara. We are up to Masech the Yoma Daf Daled Amid Aleph. We had a machlekes Rabbi Yechon Shlokish if it's considered avodah trumas hadeshin. Every morning they would go up there, they would scoop a certain amount, let's say how much of the coal from the mizbeach, top of the mizbeach, and bring it down to the bottom from the east side of the ramp. This is apart from the other deshin that they had, the hoitzos hadeshin, which if there was a large mound of ashes, they would get rid of it as well. So now the Gemara continues. We are up to Boyir Abovin, about 7 lines from the top. Boyir Abovin, Trumas Hadeshin Bekama. So how much do you actually have to remove from the top of the Mizbeach? Ashes, how much? And so the Gemara, the Shai is as follows. Mitrumas Maise Yalfinala. Because the word Truma is to remove, is to separate. Where else do you find the concept of Truma? Like Trumas Maise, where you had to separate over there. Over there, here it says the Hadim bits of Harimaisim, very similar. I mean 10%. I mean, if you have a pile of ash, you got to remove 10% of that ash every single morning. Is that what it is? We learn that also we find a similar word when the Abishut after the war is Midyan, and it says there Harimaisa Meches La Hashem, and there was 1 out of 500. So maybe that's you have to do a 500th of the ashes. Taser already asked the question. Taser says because it's the word hadim or harimais. Mashenke by truma it says there's not lashon sibui take off. It never says lashon sibui be tatum. It says reish is the gancha. It says all the other lashonim that doesn't use the word. We'll look for the word. Okay. Then Taser goes through every single thing. One from Chala, one from here, and you always find the word is written a bit different. Says the Gemara, but this is an interesting Gemara. You don't normally have it. The Gemara then answers. Tashma coming here. The Tanya Rabchi. It says the Bride learned. Nemaka. It says over here Behadim. Over here it says by the Tumas Hadesh says Behadim Hadesh, and in Nevel it says later on. By a Karmincha, it says they were the Hadim as well when it comes to Kaimitz. So Mala Halon Bekaimtzai, Avkan Bekaimtzai. Just like over there by Karmincha, you take a fistful. Over here too, you take a fistful as well. And that's what you take, is a fistful. But that's a minimum. It's not that's not the exact amount, only minimum, because remember, if we're talking about coal, it'll be hot, you're not going to go start playing around. So you take this, that's the minimum, is a Kaimitz. What's interesting in this Gemara is the Gemara asks, is it this? Is it this? The Gemara says it's a third thing altogether. So why wasn't this part of it? Why wasn't the Hamina? They should have asked, is it this? Is it this? Or is it the Kaimitz of Mincha? And the Gemara said it's Kaimitz of Mincha of Nice. Here you have like out of left field. As if the Gemara had thought that we're following the Gemara that says that according to one opinion, remember the Shlokish said you only need 2 vestments. Now, if it's not avoided, what do you bring it to Kar Mincha? It doesn't fit in at all. So therefore he assumed it's another activity which is not a carbon. So we said maybe mech of a midyan, or maybe it means trumas meiser. And the Gemara says no, that either the halacha of Yechon that trumas hadeshin is an avodah, so therefore we have every right to compare to a carbon, and so on. Or even according to the Shlokish, it more resembles a carbon than it resembles trumas meiser or other texts. I mean, maybe that's pshat in the Gemara here. So anyway, Rav comes along and says, there are 4 different services in the base of Mikdash that Zor, Chayiv, Alei, and Yisrael does it. He's just usurped the Avodah that's exclusively for set aside for a Kohen, so he gets Chayiv Misa. Yesterday, we had a while. No, that's something else. Those are the 4 primary avodas. None of those chayiv. The shchita, kabbalah, halacha. No, yeah, that's what I was talking about. We had these are the 4 main avodas that we have people. We have all these other things. That's a debate. No, yeah, it is. No. Kabbalah is avoided for halacha and zrika, and shchita is ksher b'zar. We'll see. What are the 4 avodas? This mitzvah is something else. We'll still see what the rule by mitzvah is. Even though Kabbalah and halacha are definitely exclusively the Kohen's domain, doesn't mean you chayim mitzvah. We'll see. One of them is zrika. Yeah. One of them is is haktorah, roasting on Mizbeach itself. One of them is nisach hamayim, the libation, the water, which is on sukkahs, or nisach hayayim, what you do every single day. That's a Rav. Comes along Levi and he adds after Trumas Hadesh. So in other words, the machlekes of Rav and Levi is exactly the same machlekes of Beichel Shlakish. Whether Trumas Hadesh is an avodah b'chal. Rav holds that Yechai Nachai Misay could be same avodah. Could be. And Levi holds that no, you are. It's definitely an avodah. Says the Gemara, the Levi must the Levi lived in his own brayse after Trumas Hadesh. My time, but the Rav hold that only these four and nothing else. And remember, the difference between Trumas Hadesh and all the other ones is all the other ones you're putting in. Trumas Hadesh you're taking away. So Rav says, it says in the pasuk where it talks about Misa says, "Ata you, vanecha, your children is with you." It says over there, "Tishmurus kunaschem." You should guard your tefuna. Lechol devar hamizbech. Everything that matters to Mizbech, ulebeis laparaychis, what's inside as well. Vavadetem avodas matana etnes kunaskem. You should serve it, and I'm giving you an avodas matana. But then it's a hazara karvimus. So which avodas do we say hazara karvimus? Attach as follows: avodas matana, any avodah which is an input. Then hazara is chaymisa. Of the loy avodas silik, but not an avodah where you're taking away. Terms of is you're taking away. So therefore, you're not chayv. Now, why only these four? We need these four. The other activities that you do, you put in on the mizbech, or in the base of English. He says there's another rule, two rules. One criteria is the avodas matana. You have to put, not take. And the other criteria is it has to be the completion, the culmination of a series of avodas, not in the middle. Avodah tama, only if it's a complete avodah. This avodah concludes this part of the activity. And there's nothing else that follows that. For example, if you shech the animal, you have to makabel the blood. Makabel the blood, you have to transport the blood. So none of those avodas are final. Zrika is the finality of the blood. That's it, finished with the blood. So therefore, Zrika is considered avodah tam. The loy avodah is avodah, not avodah requires another avodah after that as well. Okay. It is token. That's just a makir. It's not a mitzvah makir. Says the Gemara. We even had the spring on the four corners now makir. Only kippur akil achas. Even though we want you to do four. Time by chatis. Says the Gemara right. The Rav and the Rav, Levi. So how does Levi tackle in terms of Eshen? Because in that very pasuk, Rabbi Rachman the Torah says, "Lichol dvar mizbech," anything that pertains to the mizbech, whether you're putting it on or whether you're removing it. So terms of Eshen, it was included. Chol dvar mizbech. No, but what's Rabbi do? Chol dvar mizbech. Ahu la suye. That's coming to teach you other things which are not directly negated to mizbeach. It's not touching the mizbeach. For example, sheva hazoye shebefnim. You're spraying 7 times towards the paraychis from the parel and dover. Or the whole community did an aveda, or the klein blood did an aveda, or the kippur, or the mitzvah, or you by mitzvah you put on his finger, and so on and so forth. It's not dvar mizbech. These don't do them mizbech. They're out in the front. We look at this, and it comes to teach you the whole dvar mizbech for that they are included. If Zor does that activity, he's chayiv misa, but not to teach you siluk, to remove the trumas hadesh. Nu v'levi, how does Levi learn from dvar mizbech? Called dvar mizbech. That things you take off. You need it for the sheva hazoyis. Nafkalei midvar v'chol dvar. It could have said dvar mizbech, but why is saying v'chol? So chol comes to teach you siluk. Dvar mizbech teaches you even things which nothing touching mizbech, like the sheva hazoyis. V'chol comes to add another layer. That is that even things we take away from mizbech is also included. But the kol davar ladorish. But the Rav, on the other hand, dvar and kol dvar, he doesn't dash. He says that dvar or kol dvar is one drasha. You can't learn 2 separate drashas from dvar and the kol dvar. Says the Gemara, so let us say now the kol dvar mizbech is a cloud, right? Anything. The pasuk says it's a generic. It's all inclusive. The kol dvar mizbech. Then after that, it says clearly avodas matana. Then it says after that it says avodas matana eted, that which is limited only to things you place on the mizbeach. So l'chayda prat klal prat. L'chayda, what you have here is a prat and a you have a klal and a prat. And what's the rule by klal and a prat? Aim bechlal elo masher beprat. We should limit it only to things which you place on the mizbeach. not things which you remove from the mizbeach, or not even Sheva Hazois, because Ein Bechlal El Masha Prat. It should be something which pertains to the mizbeach. Says the Gemara, the Avil Chayda Avodas Matone In Avodas Siduk Loy. Only thing you place on, not to take off. So he says, Amakro. It says in the pasuk, Ulu Bebeis La Paroiches. It says in the pasuk as well. In between, afterwards, Varam is back. Doesn't go straight away. Avodas Matone. Then you can argue it's a klal and a prat. After the word Chol Varam is back, it says Ulu Bebeis La Paroiches. It adds something. Also that which you do within, right? The Sheva Hazoy, know that. So or teaches you something else. And therefore, there's a hefsik between the klal and the prat. And what's included based on paraychis? For example, on Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol has to spray in front of the oven. So therefore, it comes to include other things, or putting the potatoes on the fire. But then it says avadatem based on paraychis. So this is we dash. El based la paraychis. That which we do inside it says in the pasuk there, the words avodas matana, which means putting it on, is only negated to mebeis laparechis. In other words, those activities where you the seven hazois and all that spray is only because you're putting it in front, and therefore, if so does is chay misa. If he takes the something out of Kedosh, he wouldn't be chay. But regarding the activities of the outside of the bay, the chol bar mizbeach, I feel avoid the sin. It says the chol var. When it comes to the mizbeach, it says the chol var, which includes everything, whether you're putting it on or you're taking it off. You're taking off the room sodesh. The passing limits is avoid matana etas b'nashem. That is talking about the activity with beis laparoiches, which is avoid matana is written right after beis laparoiches. So by beis laparoiches, that's when we say that only when there's going in and not when it's going out. The Gemara. So if that's how you're gonna dash in. So the second criteria you have let's also limit it only to the Sheva Hazoy. The second criteria was it has to be Avodah Tama. And this includes the Avodah. Maybe only regarding the Beis HaPreiches has to be the final Avodah. But when it comes to the Chol Dvar Mezbech, maybe the second criteria also suspended, and that is that even Kabbalah, Halacha, anything that you're doing in the second outside, Yisrael should be Chai Misa. Just like we cancel the first criteria, because the way the pasuk is written, cancel the second one. Only base of brecha we say avoid tam, but avoid shechar avoid. Habachut but outside feel avoid shechar avoid. Says the Gemara, because it says ba'avalatem with a vav right after the base of brecha it says ba'avalatem avoid matana. The vav comes to add some things I want to add and something I don't want to add. So one criteria I'm going to add that even for avodah schutz I need, and that is a criteria. It has to be a concluding avodah. But the other criteria, which is you play your matana and not silut, taking away, that is only limited to the base laparechis. Is I feel vavatim hadar arbikrad. Then mix them together. So we say because it says base laparechis clearly, which is inside the mizbech. So therefore, we say that is where avodah is avodah. That you have to do that you have to say batana and not siluk. How do we know which particular criteria to cancel? I'm not sure. So we're going to cancel one criteria. How do you know the Hodav Arbe is referring to the criteria of Avodah Tama? Maybe the Hodav Arbe is referring to the criteria that you don't need that only matana, not siluk. And if anyway, but that's what the Gemara says. The question. Okay, you're telling me there's a difference according to Levi Avodah Siluk from the Mizbeach. It's an Avodah Yisrael Chaymis, but from the inside it's not. What about in between the Heichel itself? What about the Heichel? It's not Kodesh Kedoshim, nor is it the Heichel B'chutz. Where do we put that? Avodah Siluk the Heichel Mao. Do we say Lefnim Medamin the Heichel is part of the building? It's connected to the Kodesh Kedoshim. We'll soon see. Taking out the psulas from the Meneda, taking out the chalus from the lechem apanim, the lechem apanim. It's still there. What if Yisrael does that? Is it chay misanat? Now, what Yisrael doing in the heichel in the first place? That itself is a problem. But nevertheless, somehow maybe the shulchan was taken. Remember, sometimes the shulchan was taken outside. So once they took it outside, then Yisrael ruchi baschem, which now mokum. So whatever Yisrael takes it out off the table then. So do we compare it to inside and therefore only matana yechai misa, not if masalik, or the heichel is considered outside of the Kedoshim, it's like a mizbech, according to Levi yechai for taking it over as well. Had the posture, then the Rabbi.
Is he asking to sue by the
So Yisrael did it.
and the thing was done removing.
No, we're talking about Avodah.
Yeah, correct. In other words, but this is nothing funny. The only time there's a taking off is on Shabbos.
No.
But when you're taking it out to describe it, that's not the time when you're moving.
No, why not? If it's happened Yom Tov on Shabbos, they still took it out.
No, but
Who cares? But they had to be done. The Avodah that day was for taking it off. If they took it off then, they would have done the Avodah as well. So what happens if a Yisrael takes it off then? The Kohen took it outside, but that doesn't matter. The place of the shulchan is the heichel activity. It's not a mizbeach activity. So what happens then to Sila? The Meneda that Rambam writes, the Meneda could have been outside in the chutz. In fact, it says we say now listen. That's the machlek is the Ram and others. Ram and Mashah brings Shabbos. All the pasuk that resolved it. It says the pasuk mi base. It says it could have said mi base. It says ul mi base because it says ul mi base. So it comes to say that what that if by saying ul mi base l'brachis tells you that there's more to it than just the Kodesh Kodashim. The Heichel is included, and therefore you are potter on the Heichel. The holier you are, the more ptur you have. So you are potter. It's hard to understand. Outside, which is more accessible, Yisrael's Chayim. Kodesh Kodashim, if he took it out, or from Kodesh from Heichel he took it out, there is not Chayim. There's a cost. El may have to according to this. So Zor should see that it's a shulchan. Okay, if he takes it off, I understand. But what if Zor places the chalus on the table? You should be chayiv. How come you don't count it before? Why do you say Adaba Avodah? This is more. If a Yisrael places the chalus, when you say Yisrael or Kohen Balmum, is the same thing. So if it puts in, because Zor legabi activity, he puts the chalus on, it should be chayiv. Because it's included in the base. You're saying the base comes to include the heichel. So let's include all the activities of the heichel that Yizor does it. He's chayiv. Why doesn't Rav include those in the heichel? Says the Gemara. So why only 4 avodas? We say no, why? Because not avodah tam. What else are you supposed to do after you put the chalos on the table? You consider the bezichin. You have to put on the bezichin. And therefore, you have to put the levayna zakah, and therefore it's not a complete activity. So to put on the frankincense there. So Gemara knew, okay, but let's say see the bezichin l'chai. If Yisrael goes and puts that incense on the table, he completed the avodah of the shulchan. And you said ulam based on frechus comes to teach you that any activity in the heichel is included in this prohibition of a Yisrael doing it. He should be chayim misa. Why didn't the Rab include them in his list? Says the Gemara, because it's in another activity. Ikasilu, it's not completed. The Shlechem Apanim Avoid is not completed to the following week Shabbos when you actually remove it. It's still part of the carbon until you remove it. And also, the Haktorah, you have to then take the next Shabbos and take the incense and put it on the Mizbech. Until you do those 2 activities, it's not completed. So the Gemara, okay. What about Zor Shesidus Amanoida? If Yisrael goes inside and he sets up the Manoira, L'chayim, it should be Chayim. So every morning they used to clean it out and then they used to put in the new wicks and everything else. It should be chayiv, except they might have did it at night. It should be chayiv. According to the Rambam, they lit in the morning as well. Rashi holds they only cleaned it in the morning. Ika, no, still has that final activity. Ika and the sin is chili. You have to put in the wicks. Besides taking out the remnants from last night, you got to put in wicks. Whoever puts in the wicks, if a Yisrael does it, should be chayiv. He can say the Shem, you got to put oil. Whatever the final activity is, nominate that, include that in your list of things. If Yisrael does it, you miss it. He must say ikad locker. All this is a preparation for the actual item. Nu had locker l'chayv for Yisrael litim and l'chayv. Locker lava avoiding. This is an amazing thing. The hadlok is not avoiding. Now there's a big machlek to show him how to learn that. The Rambam takes it literally. Hadlokah Kshay Bazar, and he holds that Yisrael can light it, which is an amazing thing. The main mitzvah is the Hadlokah, and Yisrael can light it. Yeah. You just the Hachon is greater. Here you learn that the Hachon is greater than the exactly. No, you're not cutting down because it's not about the time. Not about the time, but it's activity that's limited only to the domain of Kohanim. But the ultimate, the hadlaka is Kshay Bazar. Other Shayim, no. Of course, hadlaka is an avoid on a Kohen to do it. But if Yisrael does it, he's not chaymis. Even though it's a combination of all the activities, it's a custom that for whatever reason, hadlaka is azar is not chaymis. Why not? What do you know? Not say maybe Allah that azar is not chay. But they argue that they hold that the fetish it's an avodah. It's very difficult to understand the logic how hadlaka is shaded bizarre. Says the Gemara, no, but Tanya, we learned we're comparing now hadlok of menorah to the lighting of the fire on the mizbech. Didn't we learn Noshtu b'nei Aaron HaKohen Eishel Mizbeach? The children of Aaron HaKohen should place the fire on the mizbeach. But Orchu Eitzim Alei should place wood on the mizbeach. Limit comes teach you alatzos as Alisa. There comes the lighting, the twigs. Who should light them? Should light the Ela b'Kohen kosher? It should be done only by a Kohen because it's b'nei Aaron. Sorry, yeah.
Just noticed Rashi. He talks about just later. According to Rashi, they actually removed the old cups from the menorah and took them out to clean them.
Yeah.
I always thought they just cleaned in the Vedic, and that's why only Kohen does it, because then they saw
So
somebody into there.
what he's saying is
Rashi's saying
correct. There's a gold.
the actual cup.
There's a gold container in
And
the
they take
field.
it outside. Some fast the Kohen should stand there cleaning things. But I never think of that. I always thought the Kohen does that inside there.
Okay. So the Chayde we see had to be done by Aaron HaKohen. The lighting of the mizbech, and it had to be done big Leishodas because nobody the Kohen had to dress up. If once a bnei Aaron HaKohen has to do it, has to wear all the begodi bigger Kohen. And if Aaron himself does, has to wear the big Kohen, which is eight is the 8 clothes. So the Chayde the same thing applies to Bnei. So Gemara says no. Hatzos is alisa avoidi. Lighting the wood on the mizbech is an avoidi. Or hadlok al avoidi. But hadlok of is not an avoidi. It must be a loch of Moshe Sinai. Otherwise, how do we know to make this distinction? Befrat, like you said, it's about lois chazanedes and so on. Elameatev, so zon. Elameatev, so. So interesting. Now, when the Torah says by Moshe ben Yichlei Lech Hashem Azayis to Moshe when the is activity Varan, all the before Shem asks why he says to Moshe, Chassidus talks about that. Not a kasha. So what if Moshe was a Levi? Well, you still can do it. Anybody can do it. You gave him the oil, he'll give it to Kohen to do it, but the mitzvah of hatlokas neighbors can be anybody. So Zor Shasidus Amarocha L'Chayiv. Okay, I'll grant. Okay, let's get that. Yeah. So the Gemara, El Mayata Zor Shasidus Amarocha for Zor. Okay, sets up the fire on the mizbeach. L'chayiv, we should be chayiv because Jesus says activity of a coin. Why doesn't Rav include that? Doesn't Rav include that? Because it's not a very tumma. You don't get misa. Ika sidish negzei. You still have to put the 2 pieces of wood that go across the entire width of the mizbeach. No sidish negzei l'chayiv. Whoever does that should be chayiv. The final avodah. Ika sidish body. You have to place limbs on top of that. Carbon tummy every day, and therefore it's all part of the seed of the maracha is only a step for to burn the limbs of the carbon tummy. So therefore it's not a complete way to. When we get to Rashi already said before that if the fire gets weaker and weaker, you have to add more wood.
But it sounds like that's the burning of the fire, not actually even carbonates, is it?
Yeah, we'll learn. There's another little fire there. There's a little fire always there. Yeah. On the back, we learned there's a little fire that's constantly, and they take from there the fire.
So if he adds to that one, which is really the source of all the other fire, maybe that one he should take it beside himself on that fire, on that little, because it plays a very important role.
What if you put extra wood on it?
Yeah, exactly. No,
but there's no mitzvah there. That's just to make sure they're still burning. That's not an extra avodah. Avodah is what says you have to do it outside marocha. Marocha is the big. There's two big marachas, small one. It's not avodah. It's a maintenance. So the mother of Rabbi and Zor Rabbi actually holds that Zor organized it to create him. It is the combination of avodah. You just said a minute ago it's not. It's only preparation. So Rav does not include the snake. Was not snake creates him, and we don't know why not. The Rabbi is clear. That's an avodah. So Gemara says you're right. So Machlek is Rav Rabbi Yechon. Bahapligi. Ma Sav Rabbi Tami. Rav Rabbi Yechon holds that this is the end of the carbon tummy is a separate thing altogether. It's not part of the avodah of snake creates him, and therefore Rabbi Yechon holds that you eat Chay Misa. But Rav holds Rav Rabbi Tami. It's a step for the body, and therefore a Yisrael is not Chay Misa for it. So the Gemara, in fact, Tanya Kavos said the Rav, we looked at the Brayso just like Rav. And the one that's not an avodah, and Tanya Kavos that it's not the end of the avodah, and Tanya Kavos the Levi that that it is. Yeah. So the Gemara Tanya Kavos the Rav. Look at Rav. That is not that part of the way. Avoid the shizor chayv because dam bein with him sprinkling blood wherever it is that Yisrael chayiv amazeh bechatz oiv amamatz. All this sprinkling blood. If you sprinkle bechatz oiv, if you squeeze the blood, if you're squeezing the blood of there by the normal carbon chatz, vamakti ba'elis oiv. After you did your malik and everything else, then you have to roast some mizbeach, and you squeeze out the blood on the wall of the mizbeach. And the 3 loigen yain, which is for the smallest, which is a quarter of a hin, which is the smallest carbon of a sheep. So we see like that. These are the activities. Doesn't mention a word about anything else. These are the activities. Remember we had Manasseh and so on and so forth, which he includes as well. Doesn't mention it through Masadesh at all. This is exactly like that. But that's Trumas is not counted. We see clearly at the bottom. Trumas Hadesh is not included. Levi said that Trumas Hadesh is included because he held this in Aveda. Tanya Kavas is a Levi. We learned like Levi that what? That even things which you take off from Mizbeach Yisrael's Chayvan and his following Bryce said Avodah Zochim Chaymisa Hameidim Misadesh. It says clearly if somebody does Trumas Hadesh Yisrael's Chayv because even though the activity is removing, that's also Chayv. V'Sheva Hazoy is Shebifnim. The 7 sprinkling inside Ushib Mitzayda and the Hazoy by Mitzayda V'Hama'ala Gabim Mizbeach. And the one who brings up to the Mizbeach, main double kosher, main double possible, even if it's something which is possible, we learned already, or we will learn in Yisrochim, that if you put on a carbon that's possible, but once you put on the Mizbeach is kainit and you don't take it off. So if you put it on the Mizbeach, whether the carbon was kosher, whether the carbon was possible, a Yisrael is chai mitzvah. So therefore, here the Bryce, clearly said that Trumas Hadesh is an activity which, even though it's siluk, but we learn out from the whole Dvar Mizbeach that a Yisrael Zor does it, he's chai mitzvah. Says the Gemara, new Gemara now. Lama mafisim abba payas. There were 4 different lotteries. Lama mafisim. So why do you have lottery? So you can explain why we did lottery. The races cause the endangered people's lives. And lama mafisim the chayzim mafisim. Why to do it again? Why do 4? Break up the 4. Do 1 lottery every morning for the whole entire day. Why 4 different times? So Gemara says an interesting thing. We like noise. We like a place to be a buzz with excitement, a beehive of activity. Exactly. We want the whole place to be full of excitement. Every time there's a lottery, it's exciting, right? Who wins and everything else. We want to spread it out. It says, that together we're trying to understand what's going on. But basically, when you go into House of Hashem, we don't want a shul to be quiet. You walk in, it's like a mausoleum. We want a shul to be lebedik, kids running around. You don't have to talk. You can daven loud. You don't have to necessarily talk to davening, but it should be lebedik, it should be freilich, like a chassidish clothes. Not walk in a place and you feel things in the base of Oval, the base of Abel. It's impossible. That's what Shlomo said. Toiv leleches lebeis hamishna leleches lebeis Abel. It's lebedik. I know. I just swapped it around to make it more. Anyway, that's not the reason. The reason there is because once somebody passes away, you know exactly who he was. When a person is getting married, you have a whole life ahead of you. How's it going to turn out? Where are they going to go? What's going to be? But a base of it's over. So now you can look back and say, well, this person was such a kind of person, such a kind of person. That's why it's more not a finality, but you know exactly who you're talking about. Let's go back to Gemara. Anyway, we like noise. I'm not facing how to do it. They when they wake up early morning, they wear weekday clothes. I'm not with weekday clothes. As soon as they wear they did it. Now, I'm a big day you know they have to wear Kohen's clothes. I'm not a big day the I'm a big day Kohen's clothes. What's going to happen is, let's say somebody wins the lottery. There are strong people there, and they'll use strong arm tactics to take away the piece of paper, whatever it is that you had, that you were given, that you and they say you better give it to us. The Chamsi, they'll steal it right from you, and they're ready to join the job, and because they did a lottery right away, you went to the job. Before you had a chance to go to a Bezdin or anything else, the Bison had strong, that strong arm tactics. I woke up in the morning, I don't care if you won, I'm taking over. Rav Sheisha says the big day kodesh, they wore Kohen's clothes. Yeah, go figure.
Oh, just dizzy, man. You know that? You look at this, like strong arm guys.
A temper they had.
And they stab each other and they push each other off the kevish.
We had in the Bobas in the end and get posher there that by Kohen.
They make a
special get we sew it up because they have a very bad temper and they'll constantly give gittin to their wife. So Yisrael, if he doesn't get to his wife 5 minutes later, he can take her back. He calms down. But the Kohen can't take her back. So therefore, we want him to calm down. So by the time you undo the threads, Hopefully he calmed down already. There's koinim raschonim hey. And how does that reconcile with ish ches and the ish ches? I don't know exactly how it works. Rav Sheish is like the big day kodesh. They wore kodesh clothes. Why? For the amr be a weekday clothes. Agab chavilusei. Sometimes they're so excited they won, they go straight to do the avodah wearing weekday clothes. And a kohen is not allowed to do avodah with ordinary clothes. But I'll do it. How do I know that they wore big day kodesh? It says that after they won the lottery, whoever it is who won the lottery is muscle the chazan to give over to the shamish. Mafshitin oisen as big dame. They stripped them off their clothes. Now we don't know what clothes it is. They took them off their clothes. The only clothes that they let them still remain wearing is the pants. Now, my love, who are we talking about? We're talking about oisen shezachol lefayis. We're talking about those who won the lottery, and it says we removed all their clothes. Clearly, they were wearing big dechayos. So we had to remove all their clothes. So it says that they were wearing big dechayos. If they're wearing big kuna, why take off your clothes? You're already wearing big kuna. No, we're talking about they came with ordinary clothes. That's right, they came with kohen's clothes. No, they came with kohen's clothes. Why are we taking off the clothes? We're talking about they're wearing kohen's clothes. But all the other kohenim who dressed up to come to the lottery and now they lost, they take off their clothes because they're not doing avodah now. They're going back to sleep or whatever it is. So they took off their clothes. They're not doing avodah. Now the truth of the matter is, a kohen is allowed to wear his clothes even if he's not doing avodah. So I'm not sure why you have to tell the or just tell them this is what used to happen. I'm not saying it has to happen. It used to happen. You go back to sleep. Something like that.
That there was a procedure, as it were, that to take your clothes off.
Just changing an acknowledgement that they lost.
If they're allowed to do in the chayil wearing a big nekuna, why do we have the special pinchas and malbish you used to?
Because they generally didn't wear it only in the Beis Hamikdash, but they don't have to always be doing avodah when they wear their clothes. And hachinami mistabel, soon learn about the kohen's mothers. Hachinami mistabel. Yeah, any avodah, it's avodah. In fact, it makes sense. For these, the way you learn. If you tell me you're talking about they wore ordinary clothes and we stripped them of ordinary clothes, so what does it say? They stripped him off the clothes and they left him wearing the pants, which means l'chayda. They took off the top things like the hat, the gartel, and the tunic, put on the kohen's tunic, and then they took the pants. But we learned before, Yilbash al Psari, what's the first? The first thing you put on is the pants, not the last thing. So it can't be like you. They left him only wearing the pants, but then the first thing you put on is pants. What you can answer, that Nachman says, holy cash, doesn't bother me. This is how you should learn. While he was still dressed with that tunic that going all the way down, underneath they took off his weekday pants and they put him on his kohen's pants. Then after he wore the pants that he's wearing is already put on the kohen's pants. And then after that, they removed the other three clothing. The only thing I left behind was the pants itself, and they added the other three clothes. Why couldn't the kohen dress himself up? Why couldn't he put on his own pants? What do you need other people to help him out? Put on a hat, a garland. Why couldn't they do themselves? Is this out covered, maybe?
I wonder if it's to create significance to the kohen. This is not big dechel. You have to have special awareness on it.
Maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna we'll stop over here, even though we'll stop here and continue tomorrow.